there's a quiet that comes before the cold, the kind that slips into your skin before the frost even forms. That's the kind of morning it is now, in the Viking village. You're not quite awake, not quite dreaming, just somewhere in between. Let's stay here a while. No alarms, no pings, just the rhythm of wind and wood, and the creaking of a timber longhouse half asleep in the pre-dawn dark. Outside, the village stirs beneath a blanket of mist. The fjord nearby is still, like glass, reflecting nothing but the grays of a sky that hasn't made up its mind yet. And in the soft haze of early morning, you hear them. Not words, not conversation, but movement. A heavy footstep, a bucket scraping stone, the shuffle of sheepskin, the cough of someone older than time. You're here now, in a Viking village. But be warned, it's nothing like the stories. No horned helmets, no raging fires and beer-soaked feasts, and certainly no soft beds, cozy furs, or free afternoons. No, life here is carved out of hardship, rough as the driftwood dragged in from the sea, and just as likely to splinter under pressure. So go on, try to last a day here. You'll wake up on straw if you're lucky, next to bodies that haven't bathed in weeks. You'll smell smoke and sweat before your eyes even open. And when they do, you'll see darkness. Not symbolic darkness, real darkness, because there are no windows here, just slits in the walls for air, which is more for smoke than for you. And don't think breakfast is waiting. If it's winter, there might be nothing left. If it's summer, maybe some leftover barley bread, chewed hard as tree bark, and some fish hung too long over smoke. But before food comes labor. Your job, you're new, so you'll fetch water from the stream. It's cold, the kind of cold that burns, and the bucket's heavy, and your feet bare, because boots aren't given to newcomers, are already cracking at the soles. Still think you'd last. And before we go too far down this old dirt road, before you settle in, give a like and subscribe, but only if this calm old tale fits your vibe. And drop a comment. Tell me the place and the time. It's a joy to see where you are in this climb, because for the next 2 hours, we're going to gently walk through the truth of Viking life. Not the myths, not the Netflix versions, but the real, itchy wool, back-breaking, smoke-stung, mud-crusted reality of it. There will be no dramatic music, no jump scares, only creaking beams, wind against your hood, and the stories that lived behind those longhouse walls. If your pillow is close, let it take you. If your eyes are already heavy, you're right where you're meant to be. So breathe, and let's begin. You might think you've seen the Viking world, maybe in a video game, maybe in a museum, or maybe in a slick blue-tone TV drama where the hair is always clean and the swords are always sharp. But history, real history, doesn't clean up so well. Viking life wasn't all raids and riches. It was rain that didn't stop. It was fingers stiff with cold before the sun even rose. It was families piled into one smoky room, breathing the same air, sleeping next to livestock, and praying the winter wouldn't take their children this year. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a day. And that's not an insult. It's not a challenge. It's just different here. It's quieter in some ways, but harsher in others. Your body's not used to what theirs was trained for. Walking barefoot across frost-laced ground, carrying timber the length of your own height, sewing sails from thick wool by firelight after your hands are already cracked from spinning flax all day. And it's not just the work. It's the constant awareness, because you're never quite safe in a Viking village, even among your own people. That man 3 huts over, he lost his wife in childbirth last winter. He's quiet now, but grief in this place turns quickly to anger. The boy with the hunting dog, he's already fought in a raid, and he's not yet 15. And that old woman by the fire, who you think might offer warmth, she remembers the time before Christianity came with its rules. She remembers the old gods, and she might still make her offerings at the stone circle, in secret. This is not a Disney village. It's not a theme park. There's no tour guide, no hot cider. There's only life and survival. And surviving here is a full-time job. So let's walk through this world slowly. Let's unspool the story of Viking life, like wool from a drop spindle. Carefully, gently, without rushing. We'll visit the longhouse at dawn, where the hearth is still warm from last night's embers, the only heat in the room. We'll follow the children as they feed the goats, and smear ash on their faces to keep away spirits. We'll watch a woman mend a cloak for a husband who may not return from his next sail, and we'll stand beside the shore, where the ships are carved like beasts. But even the bravest warriors whisper prayers before stepping on board, because everyone here knows. The sea does not bargain, but we won't rush. This isn't a battle cry. It's a lullaby of the past. There's no need to brace yourself. You're not here to fight. You're just here to witness. To see what it truly meant to live in a Viking village. Not for a year, not even a week. Just a single, exhausting, sacred day. So get comfortable. Pull the blanket a little higher. Let the wind outside your window blend with the sea breeze in your mind. And if your body wants to rest, let it, because the past isn't going anywhere. And now, we begin. The first thing you notice is the smoke. It's thick, not choking, exactly, but stubborn. It curls and clings to everything. Your skin, your throat, the fibers of your tunic. It doesn't rise up and disappear like you expect. It hangs, low and heavy, refusing to leave. There's a hole in the roof above the hearth. Yes, but smoke is in no rush to find it. You cough, softly. But no one else does. They're used to it. You are not. The second thing you notice is the warmth. Not a modern, electric warmth. Not the kind you switch on with a button or summon with a thermostat. No, this is earned warmth. The kind that seeps from smoldering ash, from tightly packed bodies, from wool piled on straw, from breath. You are lying under 2 layers of thick woven blankets, and you're not alone. There are people beside you. Someone is snoring, a soft rattle in the shadows. A child shifts and mumbles in sleep. Somewhere close, a hen clucks softly in a basket, disturbed by a rat or a dream. Goo, you open your eyes, but it changes nothing. It's dark in here, still pre-dawn. No windows, just narrow slits between timber slats where pale, indirect light barely filters through. The ceiling above is low and blackened. Centuries of smoke have turned the rafters a rich terry brown. They shine faintly with grease and soot. Everything smells like wood and sweat and something earthy you can't quite place. You sit up slowly. Your muscles ache, even though you did very little yesterday, because everything here is different, harder. Even resting feels like labor. Your back is sore from the straw mattress, your neck from the twisted shape you curled into. Your hands, you notice they're already red with cold. You've slept in your clothes, of course. Everyone does. They're your only clothes. You pull the wool tighter around your shoulders. The fabric is rough, itchy against your skin, but it holds in what little warmth you have. You glance around. Shapes begin to form. The beams of the longhouse arch upward like the ribs of some great wooden beast. It's a single room, maybe 40 feet long, one hearth in the middle. Benches and bunks along the sides. No privacy, no doors, just a curtain here or there, separating space for the elderly or the ill. On the far side, someone is already awake. You hear them stirring the embers. A soft crackle of dry twigs catching. The glow spreads slowly, painting the inside of the longhouse in a warm, flickering orange. It's the oldest woman in the family, Edda. Her hair is bound up in a scarf, her hands wrapped in worn leather. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her presence alone tells the others it's time. There is no rooster crowing, no bell tolling, no gentle sunrise music. Your alarm is the hiss of water poured over grain, the scrape of iron pots pulled across stone, the wet slap of cold feet hitting the dirt floor. Life here begins without permission, and it begins early. You stand, wobbling slightly. The floor is hard-packed earth, cold and uneven. You slip into your shoes, simple things made of stitched leather. They're damp. Of course they are. There is no dry place in a Viking village in spring. You walk carefully toward the hearth, trying not to disturb the others still sleeping. Someone groans and turns. Someone else reaches for the warmth you've left behind. The fire is burning now. Edda hands you a small bowl. It's barley porridge, lukewarm, not sweet, not flavored, just food. You eat quickly, because you're already late. Outside, the world is waking, and it doesn't wait for you. You push open the door. It's little more than a plank of wood, fastened with a twisted rope and iron nails that have rusted to the color of dried blood. Outside, it's not just cold. It's the kind of cold that bites, not just on your skin, but through it, into your bones, into your teeth, into your thoughts. You gasp without meaning to, and your breath, warm and soft, bursts out into the air like a ghost and vanishes instantly. The village is quiet, not silent, never silent. There's the wind, always, a dull hum in the ears, sometimes whistling through the thatch roofs like a warning, and beneath it, life, the bleat of a goat, already restless, the low grunt of a man lifting firewood, the scrape of a woman's wooden spoon stirring a pot over an outdoor fire, wrapped in layers too thin for this chill. The ground is muddy. Where it isn't mud, it's frozen. And where it isn't frozen, it's manure. Your foot sinks into something you don't want to think about. You pull it back quickly, but the damage is done. This is your day now. You look down the narrow path between houses, just trodden earth. No cobblestones, no drains, just puddles, prints, and ash. That's when the smells hit you. The fire smoke, yes, but also wet wool, boiled fish, livestock, human sweat, long fermented under woolen tunics, worn for weeks without washing. But it doesn't smell bad to them. It smells like life, like normal. You, however, have to resist the urge to gag. You glance up, and that's when the beauty hits you too. Even in the misery, there's magic. The mountains on the horizon are capped in snow, jagged and powerful. The fjord glistens in a silver hue as morning light breaks through the cloud cover, and the thatched roofs, all uneven and steam-topped, look like they belong in a storybook. Just not the kind with happy endings. Edda emerges behind you, placing a heavy wooden pail in your hands. You know what this means. Water. From the stream. It's your job now, and the stream is not nearby. You carry the pail with both hands. It's heavier than it looks. Wooden, hand-carved, and patched with iron bands. The handle bites into your fingers, and it's already damp with old water. Cold water, the kind that settles into your skin and stays there. You step carefully between the huts, low, hunched buildings, built more for insulation than beauty. Each one looks tired, like it's been leaning into the wind for too many years. A thin trail curves around the edge of the village and disappears into the woods. That's where the stream is, and that's where you're going. The path isn't paved. It isn't cleared. There are roots and rocks, and the mud has a way of grabbing at your ankles like it wants to pull you backward. Each step takes a little more energy than you expect. And the worst part, you haven't even started the work yet. The forest is quiet, but not peaceful. Birdsong, yes, but also the rustle of something moving through the underbrush. A fox, maybe, or something hungrier. You scan the tree line instinctively. Everyone here knows. You don't linger in the woods alone. Wolves are not fairy tale creatures here. They are real, and they are watching. You reach the stream. It's beautiful in the cruelest way. Clear, fast-moving, and shockingly cold. So cold it feels electric. The water sparkles in the early light, and steam rises faintly from its surface. Not because the water is warm, but because the air is colder. You kneel. The ground beneath your knees is wet and unkind. You brace yourself and dip the pail into the stream. The cold hits you like a slap. Your fingers lose feeling almost instantly. Your knuckles burn. Your wrists ache from the angle, the tension. The bucket fills. You lift it, It feels twice as heavy now, sloshing, uneven, threatening to spill if you misstep. You begin the journey back, each step slower than the last, and somewhere halfway home, it hits you. This isn't the hard part of the day. This is the easiest. This is the first errand. The warm-up. The smallest job. No one will thank you. No one will notice. You carry water because someone must. Back at the village, people are stirring. The children are outside now, rubbing their eyes, kicking stones. A man sharpens a blade against a stone block, barely glancing up. You pass him. He doesn't nod. No one says good morning here. It's not that kind of world. You return to the longhouse, set the pail down beside the fire. The old woman grunts in approval, but says nothing. You're back. You did what was expected. Now comes the rest. You don't sit down. There's no break, no breakfast hour, no stretch and scroll moment. As soon as the water bucket touches the ground, you're handed something else. This time, a bundle of dry straw and a wooden scoop. The animals are waiting. You follow the narrow path behind the longhouse to the pen. Really just a fenced patch of slush and manure where the goats and pigs have slept under thin shelter. The smell hits you harder than the cold, sharp, acidic, goat urine, and spoiled hay. It coats the inside of your nose and sticks to the back of your throat. Still, you step in. The animals are awake and impatient. The goats bleat and shove against the fence. One of them, larger, with curled horns, bucks slightly toward your hip, irritated at your pace. You scatter the straw, pulling out the old damp mess first. Your hands are already raw from the water run, and now they burn with friction and filth. You toss what feed you have. Scraps from the kitchen, mostly. Nothing is wasted in this world. Even boiled fish bones are saved for the pigs. You don't pet the animals. This is not a place for sentiment. The goats are for milk. The pigs are for meat, and everything here must earn its place. You move to the firewood stack next, or what's left of it. The wood pile leans precariously, half frozen at the base, wet on one side from the last storm. You pull a few chunks of birch light, easy to split. You grab the axe, blade worn but familiar. There is no designated chopping block, just a stump someone else used before you. You swing. It feels wrong at first. Too heavy, too loud, too early. But you need this firewood. The kindling inside is nearly gone, and smoke without flame is a slow poison. The wood cracks. You split it again, and again. Rhythm begins to settle in. Chop, lift, stack. Each thud echoes off the village walls, blending into the morning soundscape. Metal on stone. Children yelling, wool slapping on washboards. The occasional cough from someone still shaking off the sickness of winter. You carry the bundle back to the longhouse, carefully, like you're balancing your own survival, because you are. Inside, the fire is low again. You feed it the smaller pieces first, blowing gently. The flames respond grateful. Not dramatic, just steady. Warmth. For now, the woman from earlier, Edda, is stitching something by the fire. A torn sleeve, wool dyed with lichen and onion skins. Her fingers are quick and practiced. Your eyes meet, but no words pass. Everyone here is too tired for small talk. Someone calls out in a low voice. It's your name, or what they've decided to call you. A man at the door is holding out a leather strap, frayed, cracked, and snapping in the cold. Fix it, he says. That's all. And just like that, your next task begins. It's only mid-morning, and your hands are already blistered. Your back aches from the cold. Your stomach is still empty. But no one here is asking how you feel. No one here is resting. There's always more to do. Always. You smell it before you see it. A thin, savory steam, drifting up from the center of the room, curling lazily toward the beams above, mixing with the ever-present smoke. It's not strong, not fragrant, but after the biting cold and the labor of morning, it pulls at you like a magnet. The hearth fire has found its strength again, and above it, a blackened pot hangs from an iron hook, bubbling softly. It isn't much, just porridge barley again. Thick, salted, left to soak overnight so the grains are soft enough to chew without too much effort. Sometimes, if the season is kind or a trade has been fair, they'll mix in dried berries or shavings of preserved fish. Not today. Today, it's plain, but it's warm. And in this world, warm is a luxury. You sit cross-legged on the packed earth floor. No chairs, no tables, just bodies gathering in a loose circle around the fire, huddled, quiet. There's no prayer, no ceremony, just hunger. A young woman ladles the porridge carefully into clay bowls, one by one, oldest to youngest. You're somewhere in the middle. The bowl you're handed is rough, hand-shaped, uneven at the rim. You grip it with both hands, letting the heat seep into your fingertips. It's like holding the sun itself. The first bite burns your tongue. You don't care. It's something real, something earned. The texture is gritty, but not unpleasant. A little sour, perhaps, but your body welcomes it like a lost friend. You eat slowly, watching the others. No one speaks, but everything is said. A boy stares blankly into his bowl, still waking up. An elder woman picks at hers, chewing without chewing, already halfway gone in thought. A young couple sits shoulder to shoulder, sharing one spoon between them. There's a rhythm here too. Scoop, blow, swallow. Life has narrowed to this one small ritual. Quiet nourishment before the next round of toil. Occasionally someone stands and refills their bowl. But there's no gluttony, no seconds without good reason. Every grain is accounted for. One man wipes his spoon clean and tucks it into his belt. It's carved from bone, likely his only one. Personal utensils are valuable, and never left lying around. You do the same. A soft clink as wood taps wood, meal over, just like that. The fire crackles, signaling nothing and everything. You stand slowly. Your knees complain. Your back tightens. Another task waits. Of course it does. But for a brief, flickering moment, you feel something unexpected. A kind of belonging. Not comfort. Not pleasure. Just placement. You have eaten among them. You carried water. You chopped wood. You did your part. And for now, you are one of them. Even if your bones aren't ready for it. Even if your spirit still clings to softer days. For now, you belong. There is no schedule nailed to the wall. No chore chart. No manager overseeing operations. But make no mistake, this village runs like a machine built on necessity, fueled by instinct, sharpened by hardship, and everyone has a role. The old don't rest here. Not really. They mend, they teach, they sit by the hearth, not to lounge, but to watch, carefully, silently, to remind the younger ones of how the roof leaks in spring, or how the goat's leg must be bound just so. Their memory is the village's manual. One mistake, and the price could be a winter without meat, or a fire that spreads instead of warms. They are not spared. They are repurposed. And when their usefulness fades entirely, well, no one says it aloud, but you can see it in their eyes. Everyone knows what happens to those who cannot contribute. The children, they work too. As soon as they can carry a bundle or stir a pot, they're useful. Not coddled, not protected. A child here might feed the livestock, collect herbs, tend to a younger sibling, or run between huts with messages knotted into wool cords. And they listen, always, because a child who forgets that firewood must be dry, or that fish must be salted before dusk, that child puts the entire family at risk. There is no such thing as innocent error here, only costly ones. The women, they do everything, and then some. Grinding grain, spinning thread, tending to the sick, butchering chickens, stitching wounds, making cheese, weaving sails. Some go to sea, others hold the village together while the men are gone. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes forever. They wear scars like the men do. Only theirs are stitched across hands, across hips, across hearts. A woman here doesn't wait for permission. She doesn't shrink. She endures. She commands. And you do well to respect that. The men, they build, they hunt, they trade, they fight. when the need arises. They disappear over the fjord in dragon-proud ships and return months later, quieter, thinner, sometimes broken. Some return with silver, others with stories, some not at all. And the village adjusts, grieves, moves on. There is no time for mourning that lasts too long. And then there's you, a newcomer, not born here, not weathered by the same cold, not yet useful in the way they need. So what's your role? For now, labor, the kind no one else wants, the kind that breaks fingernails and swells joints, the kind that doesn't earn you honor, just survival. Carry this, clean that, patch this, lift that. You're not resented, you're not embraced, you're tolerated. And in a Viking village, that's a start. You begin to understand something now. Survival here is not just about strength. It's about placement, about knowing where you fit. Greek Sultan, because if you don't, you are left behind. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. You might think danger would come with fanfare, shouts, alarms, a call to arms. But in this place, danger is quiet. It creeps in, settles just beyond the fence, lurks in the tree line, waits in the wind. And you feel it, even now, with chores in motion, and the smell of porridge still lingering. Your eyes are drawn, again and again, to the edge of the village. Out there is everything they don't control. The forest is ancient. Its trees twist in odd directions, roots like claws digging into frozen earth. The path between them is narrow, traveled only when it must be. Even hunters tread carefully there, because beasts live in those shadows. Not mythical ones, though the stories say otherwise. No, these threats have fur and teeth and yellow eyes that blink at the wrong times. Wolves, bears, wild dogs, and worse still, the creatures you think are gone but are not. The children are warned. Never walk alone. Not because of the cold, but because some things follow, and the woods don't echo when you scream. But the forest is not the only threat. There are other villages, other tribes. Not all of them friendly. Some have lost too much to the sea and come looking inland. Some remember old grudges that never died. Some raid not for survival, but for sport. The scars on the older men, those you saw sharpening blades and saying little, tell stories that will never be spoken aloud. And the women, they keep knives in their aprons, just in case. You've noticed that no one leaves the longhouse without at least one blade hidden somewhere. Even the children carry small things, carved bone handles, dull edges, tokens of the expectation that one day they'll need them. Then there's the sea. Beautiful, yes. Alive, yes, but also cruel. It gives fish, trade, escape, and it takes without remorse. Boats capsize. Storms arrive without warning. A wrong wind can erase an entire expedition, and when they don't return, no one goes searching, because the sea does not give back what it has claimed. Even still, there's another kind of threat, one harder to see, the kind that lives inside the village walls. Illness, a cough that doesn't go away, a wound that doesn't close, a fever that whispers nonsense into the night. No healer here has potions or miracles, only poultices and prayers. And if the sickness spreads too far, sometimes they leave a person outside, alone, to protect the rest. They don't talk about it, but everyone remembers. So when you ask why people here walk the way they do, head slightly down, eyes scanning, movements precise, it's because danger isn't an event here. It's a constant. They don't fear it. They live with it. They prepare for it. And when it comes, they don't scream. They respond. You're beginning to understand why one day here is already too much. And it's not even noon. There is no bell that signals noon, no horn, no shadow crossing a sundial. Only the subtle shift of light, the faintest golden edge to the clouds, the way the air feels a little less sharp, the way the stomach knots again, this time with a slower, deeper hunger. But rest does not come. Not here. Not now. You've done the morning tasks. fed the animals, chopped the wood, fetched the water. But in a Viking village, the day is a long, slow grind. And survival is not a sprint, it's an endless loop. The elder woman gestures toward the work table, a long, splintered board laid over 2 barrels near the fire. A heap of torn clothing and broken tools await. You sit. Your hands are sore already. But this isn't work you can rush. You begin with the leather strap from earlier. It's from a bridle, cracked along the edge. You soak it in warm water first, softening the fibers. Then use a bone awl to punch holes. Then thread it with sinew. Each tug makes your knuckles throb. Still, you finish and move on. Next, a cracked wooden bowl, split from heat. You heat resin over the fire. Melt it slowly. Fill the seam. Press and bind with cloth. Will it last? Maybe. Will it be enough? It has to be. Because there's no market. No Amazon delivery. Only hands. Only time. Across the longhouse, 2 girls spin thread. The whir of the drop spindle fills the air. Soft, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. They're spinning flax and wool, twisted into thread that will later become rope, garments, sails, fishing nets. They don't speak. Their hands move like water, fluid and fast. They've done this since they were 6. It's not a hobby, it's survival. Near the doorway, a boy scrapes the hair from a goat skin stretched over a wooden frame. He uses a blade shaped like a crescent moon. Scrape, pause, scrape again. He's making vellum, or preparing it for trade, or maybe just practicing. Because if he can't do this well, he won't be needed. And in this place, not being needed is a quiet death. The blacksmith's hut clinks steadily in the distance. You can't see him from where you sit, but you know the rhythm. Strike, turn, quench. Strike, turn, quench. A song of fire and muscle. He makes nails and knives. And once, months ago, a new hinge for the longhouse door. You hear someone say he's working on arrowheads today, which means something's coming. A hunt, or worse, a raid. The midday sun pushes through the cracks in the thatch. Thin shafts of light pierce the smoke inside the longhouse, catching the dust and illuminating everything in a kind of holy hush. But you don't stop to admire it. You keep stitching, keep binding, keep scraping, because the work won't wait. And even if your hands blister, even if your eyes water, even if your back knots into itself, you keep going, because here, rest is earned only when there's nothing left to do, and there's always something left. By mid-afternoon, the work has slowed, but not stopped. Somewhere outside, a raven croaks. The blacksmith's hammering has ceased, and from the longhouse doorway, you see more movement beyond your own hut. The rest of the village coming into sharper view, because the Viking village is not just a cluster of buildings, it's a network, a tangle of labor, obligation, and something harder to name, reputation. You step outside again, this time not to fetch or carry, but to watch, not to rest exactly. There's no such word here in the way you know it, but to shift your posture, to breathe in something beyond smoke. Across the central path, a man is brushing a horse's coat with a bundle of reeds. Another checks the rigging on a small cart, preparing for a journey, perhaps. Near the edge of the village, women are laying out goods on stretched skins, carved bone pins, scraps of dyed wool, fishhooks, dried herbs, even a single worn cloak. This is their market. No coins exchanged, no shouting merchants, just barter, quiet nods, murmured offers, and eyes watching everything. You wander closer, not too close, because here, newcomers are watched, not distrusted, but assessed. Everything you do here is recorded, not on paper, but in memory. The way you work, the way you speak, or don't, the way you carry weight, how you clean your hands, how you hold your bowl at the fire, all of it matters. Because in this world, reputation is currency, and once it's spent, it's hard to earn back. You hear a murmur. two women whispering behind a hut. They glance at a third, then away. You don't understand the words, but the tone is familiar. Something happened. Someone said something they shouldn't have. Someone didn't fulfill their duty. And in a village this small, that kind of failure ripples. No privacy, no anonymity. Your story is always being told, even when you're not speaking it. A man passes by you, silent, broad-shouldered, wrapped in furs too fine to be local. A trader, or maybe a raider in disguise. He nods once. You nod back. That's all. In this place, even the smallest interactions are meaningful. Because a look, a pause, a misstep can mark you, not just socially, permanently. There are no written laws here, just memory, just honor. Break them, and the punishment isn't prison, it's exile. And exile, in this world, is a death sentence, dressed as freedom. Someone approaches. They offer you a strip of dried fish, small, salted, slightly sweet. You accept, and say nothing. That, here, is gratitude. Too much speech is suspicious. You chew slowly, and for the first time today, something tastes almost pleasant. The air is shifting again, cooler now. Longer shadows. The sun beginning its slow descent behind the trees. Evening is coming, but the day isn't over. Not by a long shot. The sun dips low, though you don't see it set. There are no open fields, no city skyline, just the encircling forest, the tall thatched roofs, and the soft pale glow fading from the mist. Evening here doesn't announce itself. It creeps in. The cold deepens, not with frost, but with stillness. The village slows, but never fully stops, because night is not for sleeping. Not really. Night is for watching. The men take shifts now. One by the edge of the woods, barely visible in silhouette, spear across his back, fur cloak stiff with damp. Another posted near the livestock pen, crouched low, scanning the dark. There are no torches. Fire draws attention. Predators don't need light to see. They wait, mostly, silent, listening for what doesn't belong. A twig snapped the wrong way, a breath too close, a howl that's not quite animal. You ask yourself if they're protecting the village, or if they're protecting it from something that once lived within it. But that's a thought for another day. Inside the longhouse, the hearth is burning low. This is where most will sleep. There's no bedtime routine, no brushing of teeth, no turning down of sheets, just silence. A pot of leftover porridge is reheated, thinner now, watery, a single shared bowl of pickled roots passed around. Some chew, some sip, some say nothing, and let hunger rest. You sit near the fire again. It cracks softly. The sound is familiar now, almost comforting, but you're still cold. Someone places a second layer of wool across your shoulders. You don't know her name. She doesn't speak, just presses it there, then returns to her own place in the shadows. This is how kindness works here. Wordless, brief, unreciprocated, not because people are cold, but because warmth, here, is survival, and shared only when there's enough to spare. One by one, people lie down, sometimes two to a cot, sometimes more. Children curl against their mothers. Old men lie flat, staring at the rafters. One man hums a low tune, off-key, but steady. You lie back. The straw is no softer, the smoke no lighter, but you no longer cough. Your body has adjusted, partly. Your eyes have too. You stare at the beams above. They've been blackened by generations. The smoke of 1,000 nights. 1,000 days like this. Days of cold and work and silence and threat. Days without rest, but full of endurance. Days where survival isn't a victory. It's the standard. Someone stokes the fire one last time. A final snap of flame. A hush. The embers glow. They'll burn all night. They have to, because without fire, everything here dies, and tomorrow, it will begin again. No horn will sound. No bell will chime. Only the cough of a goat, the scrape of a pot, and the smell of smoke in the dark, and you'll rise again. Tired, cold, hungry, and still not quite belonging. Because in this place, one day is all most outsiders can handle. The sea is never quiet, even when the air is still, and the fjord lies flat like polished stone. Even when no ship breaks the water, and no gull dares cry overhead, the sea breathes. You feel it before you see it. Not in sound, but in weight. The way the mist tastes different. The way the wind shifts slightly, even in your sleep. The way every face in the village turns toward the coast without meaning to, drawn by something older than memory. Today, the ships are returning. You wake before the light, but the others are already moving, not with the sleepy slowness of yesterday, not the half shuffle toward chores. Today, there's tension in the air, not panic, not celebration, just readiness. The longhouse is already stirring. The fire higher, the wool cloaks being brushed down, the good belts being fastened, blades checked twice, because when a ship returns, you don't know what it brings. It might carry silver. It might carry sorrow. It might carry disease, rage, news, or nothing at all. But it always changes something. You step outside, and the village is already forming a slow line down toward the shore. Not formal, not organized, just human instinct, pulling bodies toward the place where the horizon holds answers. A boy runs past you barefoot. An elder man leans on a walking stick, but doesn't stay behind. Everyone goes. Because to remain behind when a ship arrives is to show fear, or guilt, or disconnection. And that's dangerous in a place like this. You reach the edge of the water. The air is damp, salt-heavy, sharp. The fjord stretches out like an offering, mirror still, mist hugging its edges. And there, just beyond the curve of stone, it appears. The ship, the long ship cuts through the water without effort. No sail, just oars, pulling in rhythm, smooth and deliberate, like a heartbeat from another world. It emerges from the mist, like a carved ghost. The prow, shaped into the head of a serpent, its mouth open, fangs bared, eyes wide and watching. Even in daylight, it feels like something conjured, a creature, a message, a warning. No one speaks. They just watch. Children clutching their mothers' tunics, elders standing straighter than they have in weeks. You with your breath held, unsure why. Because this ship is theirs. But what it carries is unknown. The men aboard don't wave. They don't call out. They row, that's all. Their faces are unreadable. Not because they're stoic, but because something in them has changed since they left. They went out as farmers with spears, sons with something to prove. They return as something else. You can see it in their eyes. Not sadness, not joy, just distance. They've seen things you haven't. They've done things they won't speak of. And some of them never made it back. There are gaps on the benches, places where men once sat. You count them, quietly. 3 empty oarlocks. No one says it, but everyone sees it. A woman to your left presses her lips tight. Her hand clenches the sleeve of her dress. Not a tear, not a cry, just a silence deeper than the fjord itself. The ship reaches the shallows. Men jump into the surf, boots hitting the rocky shore with a dull thud. They drag the vessel in by hand. No ceremony, no help. Water drips from their cloaks. Salt crusts their beards. One man's arm is bandaged from shoulder to wrist. They nod at those waiting. No words, just a nod, and it's enough. Crates are lifted, sacks of something heavy, jars, tools, a rolled-up tapestry. No one rushes. Everything is done in practiced silence. There is no applause, no parade, only the wind, and the smell of fish and wood, and something faintly metallic. Silver, maybe, blood, maybe. You don't ask. One man collapses briefly as he steps ashore, knees buckle. Another catches him, says nothing, just steadies him. and the line continues. There are greetings, hugs, a few whispered words exchanged beneath cloaks. But mostly, there is this hovering fog between people. A space where things once said can no longer be said. Where the return is not joy, but reorientation. And you're just watching. An outsider to this rhythm, to this quiet choreography of reunion, loss, relief, and confusion. You begin to understand something else. The sea doesn't just take lives, it changes the ones who return. And this village is built on the daily task of learning to live with that change. Once the ship is pulled fully onto the pebbled shore, the work begins again. No cheers, no fire-lit feasts, just hands, reaching, lifting, unpacking. You stand at the edge of the group, close enough to see, not close enough to touch. That's how it works. The inner circle carries, the rest waits. The first thing off the ship is cloth. Fine linen, dyed richer than anything in this village. Deep blues and burgundies, folded into oiled hide to protect it from sea damp. It's rare, it's precious, and it's not for you. The elder women assess it quickly, fingers testing the weave. Their eyes exchange silent questions. Who will wear this? What was traded for it? Or who was traded for it? Next come tools. A hammered iron axe head, sharper than anything made here. Nails, hooks, a chain. Iron is power in this world. Not gold, not gems, iron. And when it gleams in the sun, even the children stop and stare. Then come the stranger things. Amber beads, a brass mirror, a carved idol, small, dense, with a face too smooth to be comforting. You hear someone mutter a word you don't understand. A name, maybe, or a warning. Because not everything brought back from the sea was meant to come back. A jar is set down near your feet. You peer into it. Honey, thick, golden, perfect. You haven't tasted anything like it since arriving here. You might not taste it again. This jar is for trade, for bargaining, for power, not for pleasure. One of the returning men opens a leather pouch and pours something into his hand. Coins. Not Viking coinage. Foreign. Stamped with faces you don't recognize. Script you can't read. They jingle softly. No one smiles. And then, someone brings out a sword. Long, notched, but still shining. The edge is red, not with rust. No one speaks. The man carrying it lays it down gently, as if it might still bite. You notice one of the village elders make a subtle hand motion, a warding, a sign. The sword has killed. That much is obvious. But whose hands held it last? And, willingly, the women begin to sort. Some items will go into storage, some into the chieftain's hut, some will be traded to neighboring villages in the days ahead, and some will disappear into private hands, passed behind closed doors, used to settle debts or open new ones. Not everything brought from the sea is material. The story begins to circulate, low and cautious. You can't make out all of it. A village in the east, burned. A chief missing. A ship lost to fog. And something else. A word repeated too often not to notice. Draugr. You don't know the meaning, but you see the effect. Faces go pale. Men clutch their amulets. One child is pulled behind a mother's skirts and told not to listen. Something was seen at sea. Something followed them back. Not everything that returns is visible. Not right away. But soon enough, the whole village will feel it. There are stories you're not supposed to ask about. You learn this quickly. They don't shout at you. They don't silence you outright. They just look at you, and then look away, as if the question itself has made the air colder. That night, the longhouse is quieter than usual. The returning men are back in their places, but somehow, not fully. They eat the same food. They sit in the same spots. They pull the same wool over their shoulders, but they don't sleep. Not easily. They lie flat, staring at the rafters, like they're still watching the stars move above an open deck. You hear one of them whisper something, not in your language, not in anyone's language, just a name, spoken to the smoke. You see the signs, the smallest ones first. A man who won't take off his boots, even when he lies down. Another who flinches when someone walks behind him. One who startles at the crackle of the fire, as though it might become something else. You don't ask. You just notice, because no one speaks about what happened at sea. Only that it did. Later that evening, a woman, older, gray-streaked hair wrapped in linen, pours a bowl of salt across the threshold of her home. No one mocks her, not even the men who've killed. They step carefully around it, like it's fire, like it matters. Another woman hangs sprigs of juniper by her door. You've seen that before. It's for warding. Against what? No one says. But you hear that word again, whispered behind cupped hands near the fire. Draugr. You ask someone, softly, what it means. They don't meet your eye, just murmur, dead that don't know they're dead, and they walk away. Later that night, a child wakes up screaming, not from sickness, not from cold, but from something else. She points at the door. Nothing's there, but no one scolds her. The room is still for a long time. Someone moves to sit beside her, but they don't tell her she imagined it. Because here, maybe she didn't. You begin to understand something frightening. The sea doesn't just change the men who sail it. It carries things with it. Not things you can always see, but things you feel. In your sleep. In the shadows. In the way the fire dims a little too soon, or the wind stops at the wrong moment. Things follow, and sometimes they arrive before the ship does. The next morning begins differently. No calls for water. No firewood demanded. The air carries something else. Stillness, but not peace. A kind of pause. The village gathers slowly, not with urgency, but with intention. They are preparing for something, or someone. At the edge of the village, near the tree line, a shallow circle has been marked with ash. A low fire burns in the center, smoke curling upward, like a spirit too tired to rise quickly. Around it, bowls of water have been placed, clear, cold, each with something floating inside. Juniper, ash, charcoal, bits of bark, red and black. One by one, the returning men are called forward, by name, not all at once, individually, as if each one carries something different, something only the fire can measure. The first man steps into the circle. He kneels, dips his hands into the bowl, washes slowly, not his face, not his feet, his forearms, as if scrubbing away a memory that clings too tightly. Then he presses 2 fingers to his lips, touches the smoke, and walks out. He says nothing. No one claps, no one nods. He simply rejoins the others. The next man steps in. He does the same, but he lingers longer. His hands shake slightly as he reaches for the bowl. The smoke clings to his hair when he stands. A woman, not his wife, places a string of small bones around his neck. Not decoration, protection. You feel it in your chest. This is not ceremony. This is containment. Later, you learn the word they use for this. Skuggrunson, the shadow rinse. Not for the body, for what follows the body, for what clings after long nights at sea, for things without names. After each man has gone through the fire ring, the elder woman, always her, sprinkles the ashes around the threshold of the longhouse. Not inside, just the edge. It's a line. You don't cross it until you're clean. Not by soap, not by speech, but by ritual. You ask someone what would happen if a man refused. They glance sideways, lower their voice. He wouldn't be let back into the village. You realize the seriousness of it. Even if he returned from the sea, if he carries something back with him, if he refuses to shed it, then he is no longer one of them. You think of the blade you saw carried off the ship, still stained. You think of the sword's silence, and the man who wouldn't meet your eyes. You don't see him at the ritual. Not yet. And that worries you. Not everyone came back. You knew this the moment the ship arrived. You counted the gaps, the empty oarlocks, the silences in the returning men's eyes. But no one said the names. Not yet. In the Viking world, death at sea isn't just a loss. It's a rift, because when a man dies in battle, or in his bed, he dies among his people. He is buried, he is mourned, he is honored. But when a man dies at sea, swallowed by the dark water, taken without witness, without body, without sound, he becomes something unfinished, and the village feels it. The morning after the ritual, the longhouse is different. No one cooks, no one jokes, even the children are quieter, because today is for naming, and naming the dead is not just about grief. It's about release, and sometimes rejection. A woman sits by the hearth. She holds a carved object in her lap, a small wooden token, rough and blackened at the edges. You realize it's a namestick. Every man who goes to sea leaves one behind. A small carved piece of wood, shaped by his hand, marked with a symbol unique to him. When he returns, he takes it back. When he does not, it burns. 3 namesticks sit in the center of the room now, placed side by side on a flat stone. A shallow bowl of oil nearby. No weeping, no wailing, only presence. People sit near the fire, not in rows, just close enough to share warmth. Someone sings. Not a song of mourning, a memory song. Verses about childhood, about jokes, about who once fixed the roof with a crooked nail. It's not happy, it's not sad, it's true. Then, one by one, the namesticks are lifted, each held aloft by someone who loved the man behind it. A wife, a brother, a son. The oil is poured, the flame touches wood, and the fire accepts it. No cheers, no ceremony, just smoke, rising. Like breath finally exhaled, but not all the namesticks are burned. One remains. You notice it, set apart. Not on the stone, on the floor. No one touches it. You ask why. Someone answers quietly. We're not sure. Not sure he's dead. Not sure he's gone. They shrug, but you feel it in the room. He wasn't just lost. He was changed, and some here fear he might return. Not as himself, or worse, already has. The fire burns low. Ash drifts in the air like snow. A child asks if he can keep one of the burnt sticks. He is told no, not because it's dangerous, because it's done. What is burned stays burned. That's the rule. Even when the grief lingers, when the fire dies, the room doesn't move. No one rises right away. The silence holds, like the smoke itself doesn't want to leave. Eventually, people begin to drift away. Not in groups, not in chatter, just quietly. One by one, returning to tasks, to tools, to the weight of survival. But the air is different now. Grief has a scent here. A mix of ash, oil, and something older. Salt, maybe. Salt from tears not cried. Or from the sea itself, still clinging to the clothes of the men who returned. Outside, the world continues. Because it must. The goats still bleat. The wind still combs the treetops. The fish still hang to dry on the racks by the water's edge. But everything feels slower, heavier. Even the birds fly lower today. Or maybe you just see them more clearly, because once grief has passed through a place, even the ordinary becomes strange. You walk to the shore, not to look for ships. They're gone again, pulled into shelter, oars folded, prows turned inward, like sleeping beasts. But the sea is still there. Always. It licks the rocks with lazy persistence, like it's thinking, like it's remembering, or choosing. Near the high tide line, something glints in the sand. You pick it up. A coin. Not local. Flat, foreign, stamped with a face you don't recognize. How did it end up here? Dropped? Lost? Returned? Or did the sea place it there? Deliberately? a gift, or a warning. You don't know. You pocket it anyway. Because in a Viking village, you learn not to leave anything behind, not even questions. You wander back through the village. The blacksmith is working again, but slower. The hammer sounds more like a heartbeat now. 2 girls braid nettle string. A woman kneels to scrub the stone outside her doorway, not because it's dirty, but because her husband's namestick burned. And this is what remains. No great mourning, no long pause, just adjustment. That's what the sea leaves behind. Not answers, just adjustment. A gap at the table, a new chore assigned, a new silence, where once there was a laugh or cough or whistle, and everyone adapts. Not because they are heartless, but because they must be. Because if they didn't, the village wouldn't survive the next return. By the 3rd day, no one mentions the ship. Not the missing oars, not the names burned into the fire, not the sword that still lies untouched beside the elder's bed. The village has already shifted, like a wound that closes over, even before it's healed. Not because the pain is gone, but because the work has returned. The morning begins like any other, the same coughing from the next bunk, the same stubborn cold in the dirt floor, the same smell of damp wool and wood smoke. You rise. You pull on the same tunic. You fetch the same bucket. The animals wait. The path to the stream hasn't moved, and neither has the weight in your chest. Edda hands you a small bundle. Inside, there's dried fish skin, nettle twine, and a scrap of birch bark. You ask what it's for. She shrugs. The traps need mending. No more, no less. And that's the way of things here. Grief is not a wall. It's a thread. It weaves into every task. Subtle, silent, necessary. You pass the woman whose husband didn't return. She is kneeling in the soil behind her longhouse, tending to the last of the onions. She doesn't look up. She doesn't cry. But she's planted a stone in the center of her garden. Flat, palm-sized. No name, just placed, intentionally, deliberately. A marker, not for memory, but for continuing. The blacksmith has reopened the forge. The sound of iron on iron feels softer now. Or maybe you're just listening differently. One of the returning men sharpens his blade. Not the sword he brought back. A new one, short, plain, purposeful. When he finishes, he lays it down gently and says only one word, tomorrow, which means he's leaving again. That's the truth about this life. There is no after. There is only again. You notice the children are louder now. They chase one another between the huts. One has painted a streak of blue dye across his forehead, mocking a raider's face paint. He trips and falls. The others laugh. The sound rises above the wind for just a moment, and then it fades. Someone begins to sing as she works. Low, repetitive. A chant more than a song. You don't recognize the words, but the rhythm feels familiar. Like stitching, like rowing, like breathing, like trying to live, trying to remember, trying not to let the grief become too large to carry. You return to your core, the traps, the twine, the water, and the sound of the sea, still there. Not distant, not forgotten, just part of it all. Like fire, like cold, like grief, folded in, woven, necessary. The ship has barely cooled. Salt still crusts its oars. The sails are still drying by the fire. And yet, they're preparing to leave again. Not because they want to, but because they must. That's the rule of the sea. It never waits long. And it never stops calling. You see it in the way the blacksmith moves. Faster now. Sharpening blades, inspecting buckles, reheating rivets. You hear it in the murmurs between the returning men. Short sentences, spoken low. No emotion, just logistics. North this time? The tide's in favor. We'll leave before the next moon. You ask someone why they'd leave so soon. After what just happened. After who didn't come back. They don't scold you. They just say, brutal as it is, offers something no field or goat can promise: opportunity. You begin to notice the small signs of preparation. A boy sewing a new sailcloth patch, a woman tightening the seams on a wool tunic, a man carving notches into the side of his shield, not for decoration, but for memory, a net, cleaned and coiled, a bag of dried mushrooms placed by the door, one of the elders boiling pitch for waterproofing hull seams. There is no grand announcement, no feast before departure, no brave speech, just readiness. You see a mother braiding her son's hair, not because he asked, but because it must be done before he leaves. She doesn't cry, she just braids, slowly, tightly, like it's the last thing she can control. The village doesn't speak of fear, but it echoes in everything, in the way people linger just a little longer near the fire, in how no one lets a pot run empty, in how people begin to save words, keeping them folded up, close to the chest, because maybe they'll be needed later. You find yourself by the ship one evening. It smells of wood, tar, seaweed, and something darker, like soaked ash. You run your fingers along the carved prow. The beast stares outward, still, waiting. You ask someone why it's carved that way. So fierce, so monstrous. They say, to scare away what waits beyond the fog. You ask if it works. They pause, sometimes. So when the next voyage comes, it's not just bodies boarding the ship, it's everything. Hope, fear, grief, debt, obligation. And something deeper than language, a kind of pull. You think of the man who whispered in his sleep, the one whose namestick wasn't burned. He never came back. Not really, and yet others will still follow, because the sea isn't the danger they fear most. Staying behind is. The days grow shorter now, not by much, but enough that you feel it. In the way the light slants through the trees, in how quickly the fire is needed again, in the glances people exchange when the sky turns. They say nothing, but the leaving is close. The ship has been resealed, the sail repaired, new supplies packed with the care of a burial rite. Not much. A small bag of oats, salted fish wrapped in leaves, a flask of thick honey mead, gifted by the widow who once refused to speak. The ship doesn't groan when pushed toward the shore again. It welcomes the weight, as if it missed it. The men prepare in their own way. One sharpens the same blade every morning, even though it's already sharp. Another sleeps outside, under the sky, saying he needs to see it more. A third asks the elder for something wrapped in cloth. You aren't told what it is, and you don't ask. You notice the women working faster now. Clothes being stitched tighter, cloaks being doubled, knots checked and rechecked. But it's not panic. It's something more practiced. The kind of movement born not from fear, but from knowing what's coming and doing what must be done anyway. You see the children drawn toward their fathers, not clinging, just staying closer, helping with small tasks, fetching water without being told. One child sits beside her brother as he oils his shield. She traces the grooves with her fingers. He doesn't stop her. It's a moment. But here, moments are everything. There are no speeches, no hugs, no dramatic farewells, just gestures. A bowl left beside a bunk, a piece of bread wrapped in cloth and placed quietly in a hand, a palm pressed to a shoulder for a second too long. That's how goodbye works here. Not said, not even whispered, just done. That night, the longhouse is strangely full. Everyone is there, even the ones who usually keep to the edges. Even the one who rarely speaks. They eat. They share stories, not grand ones, just memories, moments. Someone recalls the time the ship's rope snapped and the fish spilled across the beach. Someone else laughs about the trader who offered 3 goats for a carved spoon. It's not a send-off. It's a tether, something to hold on to when the boat disappears again. Before sleep, each man going to sea again kneels by the fire, not to pray, but to feel the warmth, to remember it, because the sea is cold, even in summer, and fire is not just heat, it is home. You lie in your place, eyes on the rafters. The same dark beams, the same smoke, but the room feels different tonight. Like a breath held, like the night before a storm, or a birth, or a death. Something ending, something beginning. You close your eyes and listen. Someone is whispering. Not to you, to the fire. A name, a promise, a hope, and then nothing, tomorrow. They will leave, and when they do, they won't look back, because in a Viking village, looking back is something the dead do. The living only go forward, even when it hurts, even when part of them stays behind. Before the sword, before the ship, before the axe, there was fire, and even now, in this world of storm and stone and sea, fire remains, not just for warmth, not just for food, but for something deeper, something older. Because in a Viking village, belief is not a word, it's a presence, and the fire is where it lives. You first noticed it on your third night. Not the heat, not the smoke, but the way people moved around it. With intention, with rules, with something like respect. No one steps over the fire. No one throws scraps into it carelessly. No one lets it die without reason. It is not furniture. It is not background. It is alive. An elder sits closest to the flame, always. It's never spoken aloud, but no one challenges her place. She feeds it small pieces of birch bark and murmurs as she does. You ask what she says. Someone tells you, she tells it what we need. Not a prayer, a negotiation. Because the fire doesn't give, it decides. Around the village, small hearths burn in every home. Some are no more than stone-lined pits. Others are slightly raised, marked with carved runes on the edge. None are left unguarded. Even when a house is empty, someone keeps the fire burning. Because once a flame dies, something else can take its place. You ask what that something else is. You're told not to ask again. You're feeding the goats when it happens. A raven lands on the longhouse roof. Nothing strange in that. They're common here. Bold, smart. But this one doesn't croak, doesn't move. It just stares, and for a moment, so do you. Long enough for the woman beside you to stop mid-step. She mutters something under her breath. Not to you, to herself. Then spits on the ground, twice. You ask if everything's all right. She doesn't answer. She walks away. Later, you find a smear of ash across the doorframe. Not from the hearth. It's been placed there, deliberately, like a seal. You ask again. This time, someone answers. Bad signs need boundaries. The village watches for signs, the way a sailor watches waves. Not with curiosity, with caution. Because here, everything means something. If a goat stops eating, if bread fails to rise, if smoke from the hearth curls downward instead of up, someone takes notice, and once noticed, it must be answered. A woman stumbles on her walk back from the stream. Her foot catches on nothing. She drops the bucket. Everyone hears the splash. No one laughs. Later that day, she finds her door smeared with rowan berries, bright red, crushed by hand. It's not a punishment, it's a protection, because something tripped her, and no one wants to know what. Even you are watched for signs, the way you sleep, the way your breath sounds in the cold, whether or not your dreams make you speak. If you wake crying out, someone takes note. If your shadow falls strangely across the fire, someone adjusts their seat. It's not fear, it's responsibility. Because in a place where the gods walk unseen, and the dead sometimes whisper from beneath the ground, everyone plays a part in keeping the balance. You begin to notice the rules. Don't whistle indoors. Don't braid your hair after sunset. Don't sing while stirring the pot. Don't carve bone without asking the elder first. You ask why. No one tells you. Just this. Because the last person who did isn't here anymore. You begin to notice something around their necks. Not jewelry. Not decoration. Small objects, worn on rawhide cords, tucked beneath tunics, kissed briefly before sleep, a shard of amber, a carved tooth, a knot of iron wire bound around a chicken feather. One woman wears what looks like a stone, but smooth, black, polished like glass. You ask her what it is. She says, "Storm catcher." You don't know what that means. She doesn't explain. You see one man wrap a leather strip around his wrist every morning. 3 knots, always in the same direction. You ask him why. He says, "So the sea doesn't forget me." You ask what happens if the sea does forget him. He looks at you, long and strange. Then it'll take someone else. Everyone here wears something, not always visible, but it's there, stitched into hems, braided into hair, hidden in boots, sewn under the arms of cloaks. It's not fashion, it's armor. Not against swords, but against what lives just out of sight. The elder women make most of these things. Not as a trade, as a duty. They gather herbs, bones, thread, ash, and bits of shell. They hum when they bind them. Not a tune, a tone. You hear one tell a child, "This is for forgetting nightmares. This is for keeping your name inside your body. This is for when someone lies to you with clean hands." You don't understand all of it, but you understand enough to feel something shift. These people live among things they cannot see, but trust anyway, and they wear their trust close. You're given one, eventually. A small bag, sealed with wax, tied shut with red string. You're told, "Don't open it." You ask what's inside. They shake their head. That's not how it works. You sleep with it beside you that night, and for the first time since you arrived, you don't dream. You thought writing was for record keeping, for memory, for clarity. Here, it's something else entirely. Runes are not just letters. They are actions, and once carved, they remain. You see your first one up close when a boy is punished for stealing. Not whipped, not cast out, marked. A single rune scratched onto a beam above the hearth where the offense occurred. It's not his name, it's a symbol, crooked and sharp. You ask what it means, someone answers, debt, not just his. Now the house itself holds it until it's repaid, or erased. They carve runes into the handles of their blades, into doorposts, into the underside of bowls, into the ribs of their longships, but not randomly. Every mark means something. And if you mark something without knowing the meaning, or worse, mark something false, the village may forgive you, but the gods will not. You see an oath sworn one morning. 2 men, bare-armed, hands clasped over a fire. Between them, a flat stone and a bone pin. They prick their thumbs, press blood into the center, then carve the rune beside it. You ask what it is. They say, truth. It binds them, not just to each other, but to reality. If one breaks it, things go wrong. Not immediately, not obviously, but inevitably. You see it again, days later. A woman etching something onto the inside of her loom. She weaves faster after that, more smoothly. You ask what it said. She replies, "I will finish what I start." A promise. To the cloth, to herself, to something watching. You begin to understand. Language is not casual here. Speaking matters. But carving is forever. It goes into the wood, into the earth, into the bone, into time. One day, you pick up a piece of driftwood. Someone has scratched a rune into it, old, faded, unfinished. You ask what to do. A man takes it gently from your hand. We bury that. You ask why. He says, so whatever it started doesn't find its way back. In this village, there are no jails, no judges, no courtrooms. But that doesn't mean there is no justice. It simply means the consequences live inside the world, not beside it. The rules are not written, but they are known, passed through glances, through old stories, through the way a mother snatches a child's hand back from the wrong doorway, or a man lowers his eyes when the wind changes too suddenly. You hear the whispers before you understand the story. A man took something, not food, not coin, a thing meant for someone else, an amulet, a carving, a gift given in grief, taken for gain. He's not beaten, not dragged through the village. Instead, he's asked to sit at the center of the longhouse, beside the hearth, where the fire sees all. Everyone gathers. No shouting, no accusation, only stillness. The elder speaks first. You carried something not yours. The man doesn't deny it. His eyes are low, his hands still. He's already shamed. But here, shame is not the end. They place the item before the fire, a small charm of bone and woven flax. They burn it, not as punishment, but to sever it, to return it to silence. Then they ask the man to speak, not to explain, not to justify, but to say his own name. Say who you were before. He says it. It sounds smaller than it did the day before. After that, he is not exiled, but things change. His name is not called when the ship needs oars. He eats last. Children do not run past his door. He is seen, but not looked at. Not forever, but long enough. You ask someone how long the dishonor lasts. They say, until he carves something better, and they point to the beam above the hearth, where another man's rune sits. Old, weathered, softened by time. You ask what it means. He returned a thing that should not have left. You ask what? They say, himself. There are other rules too. Rules not for morality, but for balance. Don't speak the names of the dead after dark. Don't pour clean water over a dirty bowl. Don't sleep in someone else's place without asking, not because it's impolite, but because it invites something that doesn't forget where the boundary was. One day, you nearly step across a circle of stones left outside a doorway. You're stopped gently. No words, just a firm hand. You ask later what it meant. They say, that's for someone grieving. It keeps the sorrow from getting out too fast. You begin to see it. This is not superstition, not nonsense, not fear. This is structure, a quiet scaffolding beneath a brutal life, where belief holds everything together. And when someone breaks that belief, it doesn't just crack their reputation, it tilts the world. There comes a time, rare, but unforgettable, when a person is asked to speak before the fire, not to tell a story, not to recite a poem, but to stand trial, not by law, but by truth. Because in this village, when trust is broken beyond whispers, and when the silence grows too heavy to hold, they bring it to the flame, not for justice, for clarity. It happens at night. The longhouse cleared of everything unnecessary. No meals cooking, no wool spun, just bodies, seated in a circle, eyes low, breath shallow. In the center, the fire burns high, fed slowly, deliberately. The smoke rises straight this time, a good sign. The accused stands barefoot, hands open, not tied, not guarded. If they run, they are no longer part of the village. And to be outside is to be nothing. No one accuses them out loud. That part has already happened. In whispers, in glances, in the tilt of the elder's head. Now, the fire must know. They are given 3 tasks. Trompe case. To speak their name. Not just their name, but what it means. To place something on the fire. An object tied to the offense. Trompe case. To step through the smoke. Not as a punishment, but as a test. The name comes first. He speaks it clearly. A name you've heard before. Shouted during chores. Spoken over laughter. Now, it sounds heavier, slower, as though it no longer belongs fully to him. Next, the offering. A ring. Simple. Iron. You're told it was taken from someone else's chest. Meant for a wedding. Never returned. He places it in the fire. It doesn't scream. It doesn't crack. It glows, then melts. Slowly. Cleanly. Finally, the smoke. He walks through it. Not fast. Not slow. Just forward. The air bends around him. The fire shifts, and he disappears for a moment. then reappears on the other side, alive, silent. And no one says a word, but the elder nods, and the circle breathes again. Not in forgiveness, in certainty, because now the village knows. And once the fire knows, the matter is settled. The next day, you see him drawing water again. No one avoids him, but no one touches him either. He has passed through something. He is not punished. He is reintegrating. Not as the man he was, but as the man the fire left behind. You ask someone, what would have happened if the fire had cracked, if the smoke had gone the wrong way, if the object had burst? They say, then we would have known. You ask, known what? They look at you and say nothing, because that answer belongs to the fire. The fire almost never rejects someone, almost, but when it does, no one forgets. You hear about it days before anyone dares say the name. A girl whispers in the dark. He dropped the charm in the coals, and it screamed. You don't believe her until you see how the village changes, how the elder's face tightens, how tools are put away earlier in the day, how the children stop playing near the longhouse altogether. Something has shifted, and everyone feels it. Eventually, the story reaches you, not as a tale, not as gossip, but as warning. A man, one of the traders, had been accused. Nothing new. It happens. But when his time came, the fire turned. They say he placed his offering, a small bag of stolen dye, into the flames, and the coals hissed. Not boiled, not smoked. Hissed, like breath through teeth, like a thing saying no. Then the smoke curled in the wrong direction. Instead of rising, it fell, slid down like oil, clung to his feet. And then he coughed. Once, twice, then silence. He tried to speak. No words came. The elder raised a hand. No one approached him. He hadn't run. He hadn't cried, but still, the fire had refused him. You ask what happened next. Someone answers without turning. He doesn't sleep inside anymore. You ask where. No one answers. Later, you see his hut. Empty, half collapsed. No smoke from the hearth. And in this village, no smoke means no life. You ask if he's gone. They say, cruel, he's not gone. He's just outside now. Not exiled, not punished, just unclaimed. He still gathers wood, still drinks water from the stream, but no one meets his eyes. No one touches him, not even by accident. The dogs won't go near him. And every night, someone quietly places a line of salt near the longhouse door, just in case. One day, you see a child throw a stone toward the forest edge, not at him, just in his direction. The child is pulled aside, gently, but firmly. You don't provoke what's already been broken. You ask the elder if he can return, if the fire might change its mind. She looks into the coals for a long time, then says, already spoke. You realize something chilling. In this world, the worst fate isn't death, it's disconnection. To be alive, but unrecognized. To breathe, but not belong. To walk the same paths, eat from the same earth, sleep beneath the same sky, and still be outside. Because when the fire refuses you, so does everything else. Not all magic is ceremony. Not all belief is bound in rules. Some of it is quiet, folded, soft as linen left to dry beside the fire. Some of it is simply life. You begin to see it everywhere. In the way a woman knots her apron 3 times, once for each child. Not superstition, memory. In the way a man taps the door frame before stepping inside. Not fear, respect. In the way bread is always torn before eaten. Never bitten first, a gesture, an invitation. A child places stones around a toad's burrow. 5 stones, equally spaced. You ask why. He says, so it dreams safe. You smile, but no one else laughs, because that too is belief. And dreams are not considered trivial here. You notice that when a traveler arrives, they are given a seat by the back of the hearth, not the front, not because they're unwelcome, but because the fire must learn their name first. You see women rubbing herbs between their fingers before weaving, men leaving offerings at the edge of the woods. Simple things, fish bones, flax, water poured into soil. You ask what it's for. The answer always comes gently. To say thank you, to ask permission. So we're not alone. There's a tree near the edge of the stream, older than anyone in the village. Its trunk is knotted, its bark pale, its roots claw the soil like a hand. You see someone tuck a feather into the crook of its branches. Another ties thread around its base. You ask what the tree is. The answer is simple. It listens. And in that moment, you understand something profound. Here, everything is alive. The wind, the stones, the cracked cup, passed down through 3 generations. The firewood stacked just so. The carved spindle, the black cat that never blinks. They are not things. They are relationships. And belief isn't about fear of punishment or hope for reward. It's about harmony, a way of walking through the world without disturbing it too loudly, of moving gently, of belonging. One night, you find a small pouch beside your sleeping space. Inside, a sprig of pine, a thread of red wool, and a dried petal. No note, no name. You ask no one. You simply keep it near your chest as you sleep, and when you wake, the air feels warmer. Not in temperature, in tone. This is belief. Not a thunderous voice in the sky. Not a blinding revelation, but a whispered yes from the world. Returned only when you learn to whisper back. She's always there, by the fire, just off center, close enough to feed it, far enough not to cast too long a shadow. She speaks little, but nothing happens in the village without passing through her eyes. You don't know how old she is. No one does. She's not frail, but she doesn't move quickly either. She doesn't need to. Time moves around her, as though even the seasons wait for her nod. She remembers everything, not just events, waits. She knows the names of those who were born in winter storms, the dates of every lean harvest, who took the last step across the ice and didn't return, who broke the rules and was never quite the same after, but she doesn't carry it like a burden. She carries it like a loom, weaving each memory into the pattern of the village, so that nothing is lost, even when it fades from everyone else. She marks time in her own way. Stones by the fire, feathers tucked behind roof beams, knots tied into her belt cord, some tight, some loose, some nearly invisible. You ask someone what they're for. They say, she remembers so we don't have to. It's not just history she holds, it's balance. She's the one who knows when a fire is too hot, when a prayer needs to be whispered instead of spoken, when the shadow under the door isn't just wind. She sees what others overlook. And when someone asks if it's time to burn the name stick, they ask her, not because she demands it, because the fire won't speak clearly until she's watching. You see children brought to her, not for discipline, but for questions. Why does my dream keep coming back? Why did my brother come home with quiet in his eyes? She answers without hurrying, not with stories, not with logic, but with patterns. A ribbon placed in their pocket, a rock set near their window, a task given, gentle and strange. Sweep the doorstep with your left hand tomorrow at sunrise. Don't eat honey until the next moon. Sleep facing the door tonight, just once. You ask her a question, once, not out loud, just in passing. She looks at you for a long time, then says, some things are meant to be carried, others are meant to carry you. Learn which is which. And then she says nothing else for the rest of the day. You realize she doesn't just remember stories. She protects them from forgetting, from misusing, from being said too soon or too late. And when she dies, Because she will, eventually, the village will not cry. They will hold silence. They will wait. Because a voice that powerful doesn't disappear. It becomes the wind. The fire was the first thing you noticed when you arrived. Not the smoke, not the heat, but the presence. Now, weeks later, it's still the one thing that hasn't left your side. It's changed. Or maybe you have. Because now you see it for what it is. Not just warmth, not just light, but memory, judgment, forgiveness, and warning. The sword glints. The sword bleeds. The sword ends things. But the fire remembers. You watch how the village gathers around it. Not just for food, but for truth. It's the place where oaths are made, where names are spoken, where silences are held longer than conversations. It burns low when grief is heavy. It crackles louder when someone lies. And when no one's watching, it still whispers to itself, as if speaking with something older than any of you. You've seen men return from sea covered in scars and go to the fire before their families, not because they love it more, but because they owe it. The fire welcomed them back first. If it had refused, they would not have crossed that threshold. The children are taught early. Never point at the flame, never spit into it, and never walk away from it without saying something. Even if it's just thank you. You begin to follow their lead. You no longer step over the hearth without thought. You fold your hands before it, just once, before sleeping. You find yourself murmuring to it on nights when you cannot rest, not in words, but in feeling. And you swear. Sometimes you feel it respond, not in voice, but in presence. A flicker, a shift in warmth, a rhythm in the crackle that matches your breath. No sword could offer that. A sword defends the body, but a fire holds the soul. You watch as someone carves a rune into the stone beside the hearth. You ask what it means. They say, still here, and that's enough. Because here, survival isn't measured in victories. It's measured in continuance, in the fire that never dies, in the names that are spoken, in the rituals kept, in the silence honored. And when the winter comes, long, black, bone deep, it's not the sword that saves them. It's this, the fire, the belief, the balance. You lie down beside it again, eyes closed, body still, breath slow, and in the final quiet of the night, as the last ember shifts, you realize something. You came here as an outsider, and the fire let you stay. You don't notice when winter begins. Not at first. There's no sudden snowfall, no icy trumpet from the sky, just small shifts. The wind changes direction. The sun hesitates before rising. The goats grow restless before dawn. The fire burns longer now. The bread is denser, the laughter quieter. And then one morning, it's simply here. Not a season, but a presence. The air inside the longhouse is thick, with smoke, with breath, with waiting. People speak less. Not out of sadness, out of conservation, of words, of energy, of hope. You wake, and the sky is still black. You eat, and the sky is still black. You finish your chores, and the sky has just begun to gray. Twilight becomes morning. Morning becomes dusk, and light feels more like a rumor than a reality. You begin to understand why the fire is treated like a living thing, because without it, there is nothing, no warmth, no cooking, no light to keep the shadows from crawling too close. It becomes the center of the world. In the daylight months, people moved, walked, traveled, fished, gathered, but now they stay, close, near, tucked into the folds of the longhouse like coins in a worn purse. And in this stillness, something happens, not loud, not fast, but deeply. People turn inward. They begin to remember. You hear stories now. Not the kind told to entertain, but the kind that sit heavy in the air. The kind only told when the wind howls too long, when everyone is too tired to sleep, but too awake to rest. A woman speaks of her brother, lost in a blizzard with a lantern that never stayed lit. A man tells of a night so cold, his breath froze inside his nose, and he dreamed of fire he couldn't reach. And the elder, she doesn't tell stories. She just looks at the fire a little longer each night, and everyone grows quiet around her. This is winter. Not the snow, not the ice, but the weight of what's remembered, of what's still missing, of what might never return. At first, you try to count the days. You mark them on a scrap of bark with the tip of a charcoal stick, a line for each morning, a second for each clear sky. But the bark warps, the charcoal smears, and soon you lose track, because in winter here, time stops belonging to you. You wake when the fire flinches. You sleep when the longhouse exhales. You eat when someone passes you a bowl. And between these rhythms, there is only gray. Not darkness, not night, but a kind of endless twilight that sits just behind your eyes. You step outside, and the sky is the color of wet wool. Always. No sun, no shadow, just the steady hum of cold. No one wears shoes for long. The leather freezes and cracks. Instead, feet are wrapped in wool, bound with strips of hide. You walk like a ghost, soft, careful, so as not to disturb the stillness, because noise in winter is a kind of rudeness, a reminder that things still move, still suffer, still exist. Inside, the longhouse breathes in cycles. Talk, silence, singing, chores, chores again, sleep, repeat. But nothing feels linear. It feels like drifting, like you're floating through someone else's memory, one that stretches and folds and forgets its edges. You ask the elder what day it is. She smiles. Rousseau, the day between frost and hunger. You ask when spring will come. She doesn't answer. She just looks at the hearth, and you understand. The mind plays tricks here. You think you hear your name in the wind. You see shapes in the smoke. You begin to dream of green things, grass, leaves, waves that aren't frozen stiff. You wake up craving color, but the world gives you gray, always gray. And yet, you begin to appreciate the smallest things. A blue thread in a woman's tunic, the orange flicker on a polished bowl, the glint of frost on the edge of a window frame, tiny rebellions against the season. One morning, the sky almost breaks. A pale warmth slips beneath the clouds. Not sun, but its cousin. A child gasps. An old man mutters a prayer he hasn't said in months. And just like that, it's gone. But you remember, because in this endless season, memory becomes everything. It anchors you. It becomes the light you cannot see. Winter teaches you to listen to your stomach differently, not as an alarm, but as a rhythm. A low, patient ache that hums beneath everything you do. Never loud, but never gone. There is food, just not much. Barley. Some dried fish, turnips, shriveled and sweetened by frost. A sack of sour apples, each bite slightly fermented. The rest, gone long ago. Meals are no longer events. They are maintenance, a shared bowl, passed hand to hand. One spoonful here, half a crust there. A broth so thin, it's more warmth than flavor. You learn not to expect, only to receive. There are no seconds, and no one asks for them, because hunger here isn't a failure. It's a condition of the land, of the season, of being alive. And yet, no one eats alone, not once. Even the man whose name was burned last summer, the one with the twisted foot and the heavy breath, even he is brought a piece of bread now and then, silently, softly, without praise, because in this place, kindness is never performed. It's practiced. You see a girl tuck half her root vegetable into a cloth, then slip it beneath her brother's blanket while he sleeps. No one taught her to do that. She just knew. An old woman gives away her whole bowl one evening. You ask her why. She says, "I had a dream I ate already. You can't tell if she's joking. She doesn't smile, but her eyes hold something, something not hungry at all. Hunger doesn't only live in the stomach, it creeps into the mind. You begin to think more often about what you used to eat. Apples that crunched, bread that broke apart in your hands, salted meat, cheese. You dream about butter. You dream about warmth you can swallow. But then someone places a cup in your hands, hot, steam rising. It's barely tea, just water steeped with dried pine needles, but it tastes like the forest, like something that lived and gave something back. And in that moment, you understand. This too is survival. Not just food, but offering. A hand held out. Even when that hand is empty, it begins with a cough. Soft, low, dry, a sound that seems harmless when it first escapes the throat. But in winter, no cough is ever harmless, because sickness, here, doesn't just arrive, it settles, like the snow, like the smoke, like sorrow in the bones. The first to fall ill is a child. Her breathing grows shallow. Her eyes lose their spark. She stops playing, stops moving, until even her silence seems too loud. She is carried to the warmest corner of the longhouse, tucked beneath 3 layers of wool and 2 of fur. Not isolated, never isolated. That's not the way here, because in this village, when someone weakens, they are surrounded. People take turns watching her. A man hums old songs while grinding herbs. An elder places a carved talisman at the head of her cot. A woman combs the child's hair with fingers dipped in smoke and ash. No doctors, no potions, just presence. Because presence matters. When fever arrives, it brings weight with it. Not panic, just urgency. The water is boiled with pine bark. The bones from last autumn's hunt are crushed and stirred into broth. Someone whispers into a piece of cloth and ties it to the child's wrist. You ask why. They say, so her breath won't wander too far from her body. You don't ask again. Others begin to cough too. The longhouse grows quiet in a new way. Not reverent, not restful, watchful. Not everyone recovers. One night, the coughing stops. A boy barely 10 sleeps too long. He is not woken. His mother does not scream. She braids his hair, wraps him in the blanket he was born into, places his name-stick beside the fire, and sits beside him until morning. The fire burns low that night, not out, never out, but low. As if grieving too. You begin to notice small changes. Pine smoke in the air, stronger than before. Extra ash left in a circle near the door. Someone tying sprigs of herbs into every corner beam. No one says the word sick. No one says the word death, but everyone knows. When someone recovers, they are greeted with quiet nods. A piece of dried fruit, saved for this moment. A bowl of thick broth, and space to rest without shame, because the sick are not seen as weak. They are seen as wrestlers, and anyone who returns from the edge is honored in silence. You begin to understand that illness here isn't something to fight. It's something to face, together, without masks, without distance, without running. Because when you live this close to the earth, and this far from mercy, you learn that survival is not strength, it's care. So now you've seen it. The Viking village not as the sagas tell it, not full of fire and fury, but full of quiet endurance. Not men with axes, but women stirring soup for 6 hungry mouths with only enough for 4. Children learning to listen to snow. Old hands holding thin thread and even thinner hope. You wouldn't last a day here, not because you're weak, not because you're soft, but because you're alone. And this place, this sharp frozen place, was never meant to be survived alone. Here, survival is not a contest, it's a covenant. You give your portion because someone gave theirs last year. You carry the bucket because someone carried your grief. You sing in the long night not to be heard, but so no one else feels alone in the dark. You wouldn't last a day here because modern life forgot something they remembered. That belonging is not just emotional, it's practical. You don't make it through the cold because you're brave. You make it through because someone shared their bread. And maybe, in some quiet corner of you, that's what you've been missing. Not the cold, not the fire, but the closeness. The feeling that when the longest night comes, someone will be sitting beside you, holding a candle, waiting for the turn. If you enjoyed this slow walk through history, there are more waiting for you. But only stay if this kind of storytelling speaks to you. And before you go, feel free to like the video and subscribe if this kind of storytelling resonates with you. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? It's always a joy to see our little community around the world. Thank you for keeping the longhouse warm with your presence tonight. Sleep gently until the next story.